Oh shit. Oh shit. Crap, I'm gonna be late.
Welcome to the Puff Podcast.
We got a special guest tonight.
Dude, I'm just
Yeah,
chilling.
boy.
What? Who's in the house? That's chill. I'm just sitting by myself. Hell yeah. Man, why was
What's
this
up,
on
dude?
bro?
Testing.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
Recording, everything's good. My level's good.
Yeah, let's do this.
All right, baby. Let's go.
Spark it. Yo, it's Andreas, and this is Puff Podcast.
Take it back.
All right. Action.
That.
Yo, it's Andreas, and this is
Puff Podcast.
Oh yeah,
Fucker.
nailed it.
Yeah, we got it.
First try.
Yeah.
So you were just asking me something, Noah.
Yeah.
Also, like, proper outfit.
Yeah, there's been a
change.
There's
been a
hats
change.
on now.
The winds have changed. The windbreaker came out. The winds have changed.
Do you know Chester Cheeto himself?
Yeah. It was a really miraculous experience. The encounter that
Yeah.
I had.
You met him in prison, right?
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. Everyone does.
He's in and out.
Well, which is weird because he's in for life too.
And he's still
he's in for life.
They keep
but,
rolling that
but
motherfucker.
yeah, they
How's
let
he
him
still
out
running
anyway.
those commercials?
Well, he's really skinny, so he slips right through the bars.
Yeah, he's kind of like a choco. Yeah.
Wow.
He's got a
yeah.
great body.
Yeah, he just runs stuff, you know. But
Did you ask
like,
him what he's in for?
probably having fingerprints. You know,
Yeah.
he left traces, little
Yeah.
evidence behind. He left a trail of Cheeto crumbs.
Yeah, that's the number one thing, like a proper lick after you dive into a bag of Cheetos, you know?
Yeah. But
You
like
gotta-
even when you do it, like there's still some residue,
Yeah.
right? You know, that's TSA is gonna pull you aside to have a conversation about that.
Yeah.
I see those cheesy fingers of yours.
Yeah. Yeah. And they take the wand out,
Dust it off. Yep.
and you're just like, he's being cheesy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess, bro, I've got a question.
Oh.
Which is, so obviously we just had to switch up, right?
Yeah.
Like we're wearing hats now, right?
It's like a new day.
Yeah. So it's a whole different experience. It's a
Yeah.
whole new scenario.
I mean,
right?
wait, let me ask you, how
Yeah.
does that hat make you feel?
You know, like I should stare off into the distance, like at the horizon.
Is that
you
what the
know?
glasses are for too? So
Yeah, well, no, that's because I might be staring at the sun. And, yeah, so like, but like, you know, like we're on a trip out here, out in Colorado. You moved out here, but
Yeah.
you know, Ben, Karina, and I, like we're all
you're just passerbys.
Yeah, like we're you know, road tripping through. We're hanging out in the state.
Yeah.
And we were I was just kind of kicking around the idea of like, and Karina calls it transformational experience, you know.
Okay.
And I guess like the question I had was, you know, how do you pick out those memories of things that like actually change you and permanently and kind of like put you on that course, like a different course? Like, how do you decide what those moments are? And like, I'm not talking about like habits. Like, I'm not talking about like, okay, so I brush my teeth every like day for like a month and now that's just something I picked up, you know. I'm talking about like a specific moment that you can reflect on. It's like burned into your memory. And I'm just like wondering, like, what do we think it is that makes certain things do that, but other things not, you know?
Yeah. Like transformative experiences, and I'm just thinking about like the biggest changes. Like coming out here, there was definitely moments of that. And I wonder how much of it is something you plan beforehand or something you just fully experience in the moment. And
Well,
something
you
can't
trick
really plan out.
yourself into having a transformative experience? 'Cause I see people do that on the internet a lot.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, be cynical about this, because like I really want to be like.
Well, no, yeah, I want to. I don't know what. It's a hard question for me actually,
Yeah.
but I see, and maybe that's just because I'm a skeptic. But I see a lot of people where I'm just like, I don't know if like it just seems like you did that because you wanted to,
Mhm.
but you're treating it like it's like I don't know. I just get that from like Instagram celebrities.
Yeah.
Like
More so wanting to talk about the experience and actually.
yeah,
having
like
these-
we've seen a lot of vloggers and bloggers like at Moab and like national parks and stuff, and they're just like beautiful people following each other around with cameras, and it's like I don't know what you're trying to show us, like, and it's like I don't know, it just like we watched this exhausted couple get out of a van and then just like light up for the camera like they were like in paradise, like this like
And then the little camera was lowered. They went,
yeah, and then they were just like slouchy boring people again.
Yeah.
And like so like yeah
like
Yeah. Just
that's,
like-
that's what that's
you feel it.
that's
you,
my problem with transformative experience.
You have a certain cynicism about the concept itself as being kind of just an
Yeah.
advertisement for something.
yeah,
You know?
vacationing or,
yeah.
yeah.
But have you yourself had transformative experiences?
I mean, yeah, I've transformed.
Do you
but-
remember like moments or experiences where you're like, oh, this is something different or something big? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess, like, there's been moments where I've had a thought where, like, I don't think I'd be different after this thought.
Yeah.
Like, when I decided that I didn't, like, conform to any type of real religion, but that feels like it was a series of thoughts, like that obviously transformed me. And like I was always a skeptical kid about that kind of thing, like talking to my parents, like I was always like, Dad, why did Noah live 800 years? And so like I remember that, and
I really
having,
did too.
yeah, I remember
Well done.
that conversation, and then after that being just like, that's not true, like that's fuck that, like
Yeah.
and so like that was, I guess, is a transformative experience, but that I didn't at that moment say I don't believe in God. I still don't say that, like, but like, you know,
You're agnostic about it.
yeah, exactly. So,
But on the skeptical side,
yeah, I don't,
because I kind of inhabit the other side of that, right?
yeah, I don't know. I can't pick a transformative experience on my brain. I don't think that, like, I don't know. There was things, probably like, things that come to mind are like relationships, probably,
Yeah.
where like that, like you just like, the ends of relationships really
Yeah.
just like, because that
Mhm.
you sometimes the person you saw grow, or something reverts back to the person they were when you first met so quickly.
Yeah.
And so like that is just like you like, and you probably go back in their mind really fast, and so it's like that, like that's kind of something that stands in my mind. I don't know if that transforms me every time, but like there's been a few women that I've known where I've just been like, in those last few moments of our relationship, just like, oh, you know, like that, you know, people just, you know, aren't who they are, you know, all the time, and relationships change that. And so like that's been those have been transformative, because you like, and like, I don't know, it's just like you learn that that type of person, because you always think everybody you've been dating is a different type of person,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And so then it's just like you, and that's the kind of probably what love drugs do to your brain, is like makes you think that people are special and individualistic. And so I think that's what happens at the end of relationships, is I have that reversion back to, oh, all humans are capable of the same hurt and the same pain and like love, and like it's just like that special glow about people disappears really fast for me.
I feel like sometimes the end of a relationship. Sorry, was
No,
it coming out?
no, I'm good.
So
I thought that I saw something about it.
yeah, like I definitely think that so much of like who we are can be who we think we are, right?
Yeah.
Is determined by who we spend our time with and who we think we are to other people.
Exactly.
Right, and what we think we mean to other people. And yeah, I think that like to a certain extent, like the ends of relationships a lot of the times are like really big things that change relationships, right? Or like impact them. Deaths, I think, a lot of the time.
Explosions.
That's
a physical transformation.
Yeah. Well, I just mean like when like a friend or a family
Yeah.
member dies or
Oh, yeah.
passes away, like those can be transformational because it forces us to realize, kind of look at how lonely we are, right? Because
Mhm.
so much of who we think we are is revolving around our interaction with others. Like we need to be social.
Yeah.
Um,
It's kind of like outsource our happiness to
Yeah.
other people.
yeah, I think it can get parasitic and vicarious that way. Certainly, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure, yeah. But I don't think it has to.
No.
You know, and I think that we can try our best. You know,
Yeah.
as long as we.
It's interesting because, like, yeah, asking you if you've had transformative moments. I don't think I have either. Like, looking
Yeah.
back, I feel it's all been build up to moments, maybe.
Yeah.
But
That's the thing, is like,
it was
I
all
don't
because of the
believe,
build up.
it has to be shocking to
Yeah.
transform you in one moment.
Yeah.
Like, I remember the moment thinking, I love manual labor, and I didn't think I would ever, coming from the place we live, you know, nobody was ever like, yeah, I mean, there were, but it was like, the teachers weren't ever going to be like, yeah, you should be a construction worker. Like, there were definitely people who were like, I'm going to do that, but there was never any, like, you should do that. So, like, it was kind of like, oh, like, being okay with that, and, like, realizing that, like, every, you know, job you can have in life is going to be a sacrifice of some time, and, like, I'd rather use my body for a little bit of it. And so that was a big transformation in my life. Like, and realizing that you don't have your body forever, like, that was a slow transformation for me.
Yeah.
And then, like, you know, shit like that, I just remember that was like, I don't have my body forever, and I enjoy this, so why not use it? Why not? For you, it's probably like, you probably have thought a million times, snowboarding's dangerous, but,
Yeah.
like, you got to use it while you can. You
Yeah,
know, like,
totally.
that's worth it. You know.
Yeah.
So,
I'm
like,
thinking-
that's a transformation I had.
Yeah, because that similar thing happened with me instructing snowboarding, and I had this realization where I was like, oh, I like teaching. Like,
Yeah, isn't that weird?
got a lot of joy out of it. And because all throughout school, I was like, I hate this. I never want to go back.
Yeah,
here.
and it's teachers' fault or the system's fault or something. Like they're like, there's just too many teachers to think back on and think, oh, they weren't cool. Like, it's just like, you know, that's too hard to do. And so teaching, people hate teachers. Like, that's
Yeah.
but, you know.
Well, I think, like, sorry, do you mind if I backtrack a little bit?
No,
Totally.
it's cool. No,
Like, I was just thinking, like, kind of like when you're talking about the ends of relationships and, like, kind of that, like, it's not really a moment. It's usually, you want it to be a moment, right? You'd like it to just, like, kind of be a clean, kind of, like,
Yeah.
Oh.
but usually there's kind of like there's like it's a slow crash,
Yeah.
right? Just like it's a meteor breaking apart as it
Oh.
burns through the atmosphere.
Oh, shit.
But the other thing I was thinking of was like how, like, there's, like, the way that you were describing that feeling of that kind of reveal at the end. It's kind of almost like you just walk into a dinner party and you just rip off your tracksuit and you're just naked and you're like, here I am, everyone, here I am again. And, like, that person just marches into your brain and you're just like, oh, here he is. You know? Here he is again.
Yeah.
Chester Cheeto's back.
It's scary, yeah.
It's
We're-
scary.
People do that, yeah.
Yeah. People walking in and taking off their
Take off their
tracksuits.
tracksuits.
I
and then
haven't
suddenly
been in
they're
that
Chester
situation.
Cheeto. Yeah, I don't know. I've had a few moments. I'm trying to think of, like, a real revelatory moment, because that's more what I'm gonna experience. I don't know what's the phrase we've been using exactly. Transformation. See, that would mean that there was a huge way in the way I lived my life after that.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of things that have changed that. It's like a lot of things that, like, it's mostly living in the fucked up world that we live in with weird ass religions that exist and with weird societal expectations about drugs, sex, alcohol, you know, stuff that young people do, young people relationships, going to school, all the fucked up things that are wrong about all those things. And
Yeah.
John Oliver talks about them every week. Like, most of those revelations in my life have been things like, oh, it is okay that I've done this. And this is, I think, why Big Mouth is a big thing. Is like,
Yeah.
what I'm thinking of is me not changing my life, just being like, oh yeah, I can openly say to the public, like, I've watched porn before. Like, that's something that, like, you know, as a kid you'd be like, don't tell anybody that. Like, but like shit like that, just like and there's a long list of those kind of things. Like me realizing that like cursing is not a big deal. Like and like stuff like that. Like things that like just blow your mind as a kid. It's just like it, and then finally reaffirming those things and being like, you know what, I don't need to hide my rap music. I can listen to it. Like that's a kind of, I think, a thing for especially like where we grew up, kind of, is like, do you really want to pull into the Hereford 7-Eleven with your windows down playing like Lil Yachty? Not really.
Yeah.
But like I will do that now because, you know, I don't feel like it's a sin to do that, and anybody who's going to fight me about that is in the wrong.
I feel, you know what's so interesting?
What?
That you were saying, like, because that's how I felt. That. Oh, beep, beep, beep.
Oh shit, beep, beep. We're good. We got the other one.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah. Number
Sup?
2.
I feel like it's really interesting that you're like, yeah, you wouldn't want to go to the Hereford 7-Eleven parking lot blasting, you know, like making a ruckus, but like that's how I felt in high school. Like, you know, like that, like it's more like I feel like now reflecting on a lot of that stuff and a lot of these times where I was just like, I don't care, you know, just like, and now I just like kind of feel this like sense of like, man, like what? There's the what if thing, which I know is stupid, right?
Yeah.
So like I'm not advertising that, like, so don't subscribe to what if, okay?
Yeah.
Don't do it, okay? But I'm also not giving advice. So.
Yeah.
No, I totally
Don't
relate
take
with
my
that.
advice. But like, anyway, the the stupid, I don't know. What are you talking about?
Just relate with high school was more of a rebellious.
Yeah,
period
and
for me.
and maybe I feel like, yeah, for me,
Yeah.
And now it feels more like I'm at this place where it's like, oh, like if I like were that way now, if I were that like laissez, or what's the word, like kind of just like hand wavy about stuff now, I just would feel like so terrible,
Yeah.
you know. Like it would just I would
Yeah.
just be like, man, what are you doing? Like just you gotta like check yourself, you know. Like
Yeah,
just like nobody gets away with like just like being like an adrenaline junkie for that long and just like kind of tearing, being a bull in a china shop, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like and you have that like kind of like, oh, I gotta like just like ease off the gas sometimes, you know.
Right.
Like but like when you're a kid, like, and maybe it was just like my experience growing up, I just felt like the whole thing was just like pedal to
Just
the
get as
metal.
much
Well,
as you
yeah,
can.
I get
Yeah.
that. Like it used like when I would blast music out my car window back then, it would be like a fuck you thing because I thought people hated it.
Yeah.
But along with that revelation I talked about earlier, where I realized that, you know, it's not a sin, it's not, you know, whatever,
Yeah.
or it's not illegal,
Yeah.
you know, whatever. Also came the realization that back then, when I was doing it ragefully as a teenager, like people were just like, that guy's a douchebag, not like that kid's like a rebel here to piss me off. They're just, it's the type of the emotions you inflict on the world you don't understand when you're a teenager.
Yeah. I mean,
Like and like the way that teenagers act on the internet is so obvious, and that's why like on these anonymous chat boards it's so easy to find out like when
That 95% of the comments you're reading are from 15 to 16-year-olds.
yeah, and it's just like, oh, okay, you guys are just this is and that's
and they're just
and, you
yelling
know,
at people
and
in their
that's
50s
and like
60s.
that
Yeah.
should be like, and that's kind of should be a thing, is like adults, if you want to know how kids are talking to each other like in their rooms at a party, like anonymous internet's pretty good because that's
Yeah.
especially
say some
teenage
shit.
boys, like that is a good way to find out.
Yeah.
Girls you can find in a variety of other places, like I feel
You-
no,
Are you well versed in this, Ben?
no, I mean, I'm 24. These things still exist. These
Yeah,
social
yeah,
structures
yeah.
online. They're just a little more adult now. But like,
Yeah, and we grew up with that.
Yeah.
Like, and we're familiar for having been digital natives. We're familiar with how like gender interacts with social media in terms of how we used it versus how some of our classmates did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting with how you were saying, like, being younger and not knowing you could just talk about porn and that was okay.
Yeah, sure.
Like, that's the thing, like, kids feel like the whole world's doesn't understand them. Like, they feel like they're, like, everyone's kind of going against you. You're like, living in your own bubble, really. But it's more of just this idea because things are hidden from you or, like, like how you lie to kids. Just
Well, that might be my transformative experience I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And that's what I was mad about a few minutes ago, is lying to kids.
Yeah.
And that's maybe what I've been mad about my whole life, is unbecoming a kid and realizing that, like, you know what? The Civil War was not a glamorous thing. World War II was not, like, this romantic, like, here, we're gonna go get 'em, boys. Like, that
It wasn't Star Wars.
No, there's just basic things like that you learn.
Yeah.
But then you also learned, like, okay, why are drugs illegal? It's not because it helps anybody become less of a drug addict. It's because it keeps cops with new uniforms and shit, and it keeps money in the hands of the DEA and, you know, federal institutions like that. Like, that's why the war on drugs happened.
Yeah.
And so, like, that's just a lie we tell kids because we need an excuse when their dad gets, you know, dragged away because he did a little bit of cocaine at a party or whatever. Like shit like that. It's just lying to kids about the severity of the world. Like, that just shocks me so greatly. The biggest transformation in my life is really the amount of transformation that I've had to endure because we don't have the ability to be honest with young people.
Yeah.
And it has a lot of things to do. And I think the biggest reason that happens is because they don't want us to fucking vote when we do. And by the time enough of us realize that kind of thing is important, or just like community participation, or like building like relationships with people like that, by the time we realize that, you know, all getting rid of all that shame and just engaging with humans and finding out what's actually important, like voting and stuff like that, it's too late and we're fucked, and we never got. And that's the basis that we make now, is that, like, we start off fucked, and they never teach us enough to, you know, recover from that. And like,
we were too busy spending our parents' money.
Yeah, and that's the problem. And like that, and that's probably why you see so many stories of, like, this kid, he like lived at the library and he had nothing, and he got into Harvard and he went to this and that, he did this and the other thing. Is like, yeah, because there was nobody lying to that kid. There was nobody fucking standing in their way. And like that's been my biggest problem in life so far, and the biggest revelation I've had is that there really is nobody standing in your way except for a bunch of people lying about, like, generally stupid shit. And this is probably why the Tooth Fairy and Santa are a sin. Because that's revelation. Those are revelations you had in your life.
Yeah, totally.
Why though? That's my biggest problem, is
it's like this fake
regretting
revelation,
all the
too.
revelations I had to have because somebody wasn't honest to begin with.
Yeah.
And that's the end of Uncle Benji's rant on that.
What's good, everybody? We'll be right back. You know what I'm saying? We're chilling.
After these short messages. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Puff Puff Podcast. We just wanted to give a shout out to our awesome sponsors. Yo, we just wanted to say thanks for tuning in to another one of our episodes of Puff Puff Podcast.
Appreciate y'all. For real. You guys I love every single one of you 20 people.
We're doing this for you.
We're going to grow because of y'all.
You got to help us grow. Leave a review. Let us know how we're doing. That would mean the world to us.
Yeah, tell your mama, tell your sister, your brother, your friend. I mean, whoever you know. And if you liked it, they might like it. Hey, share it. Because we got something to say.
Hey, you need a light?
Hold up, bro. Aren't we supposed to be recording this episode? We need to get back, bro.
Oh, shit, we got a podcast to record. Let's go.
Well, like, so what's the worst one? Like, what's like, or like some like you don't have if you're not comfortable saying.
No,
But like, what are some of these? I'm curious as to what these lies are. Like, because like I hate being lied to. Like,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
it drives me insane, and I can think of a few.
Like-
but like, it's more that like, for me, it's more the. To me, I feel like I don't like kind of put it on any individual. Like when I think of it, actually, I don't actually like put that on an individual. I feel like I put it all on like culture itself.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
of course.
Not feeling
and
comfortable.
and that sort of feeling of being that the whole thing was, which I feel like is like, you know, that's I don't think that's good for
Well,
I don't think that's a good thought, like because thoughts do change where you're at, you know.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
think I do think that that's like I just think that that's maybe it's a weird place for us to be in, like as a species.
I think a
you
good
know?
example of this is like somebody should kind of tell you it as a kid, like someday you are kind of going to be responsible for your parents' education.
Yeah.
Because, and that's the fucked up thing, and like I think about this a lot. Why don't you go to back to medical school after 20 years? Things change a lot. Like,
Yeah.
why don't you go back to law school after 20 years? Like, that
Some
kind
people
of
do.
thing's concern. Yeah, that kind of thing concerns me.
Yeah.
So like, fuck, where was I going with this? Like,
Paying for
Why
your
aren't we
parents'
responsible?
education.
yeah, so
Yeah.
like there's so many at a certain point when I went to college and I came back, like there was a certain point where I was like, "Oh, my parents haven't had a professor or anybody challenge their thoughts in a long time."
Yeah.
Like, and that's like why education is important. And like my dad thinking he was a Republican or like not even a Republican, a conservative, because they're conservative Democrats, right? So like he thought he was a conservative guy, and eventually I was like pointing out, I was like, you believe in way too many things to be, you know, beating your drum as a conservative. And that was a big moment for me when I realized my dad just did not. And you know, we just go forward more into lying. Is like my dad hasn't heard a lot of truth in the last that you would get at like he didn't have to look around. Like, and that's something that like I think scares me, because like people say like, oh, you'll have a cognitive decline when you're 28 and you're just not as snappy anymore. And I think that's what that is, and that scares me. That like I realize that like old people, the smartest my parents ever were and ever will be was when I was a baby. And so when you get older and you're like, you need them for, you know, really complicated life issues, in a new era that they don't know about, in an internet era, which is way different. Like that's the fastest change in culture ever. You know, they can't keep up with it. And so
do you think there's a decline in the value of wisdom then? Like in
Yeah.
terms of in our culture.
yes,
Okay.
and there definitely is wisdom, and it exists, and like that. And I know so many old people will get so mad at me for this, what I'm saying right now. Yeah, but
Yeah, but
it's,
but you like I think you're getting you're because of how rapidly things are changing, right? And like I already feel out of touch with some of the places that social media has gone in the past 4 years. I've felt out of touch with, you know, our moment for 4 years. You know, like I felt at a distance from it, and like especially like I feel like, you know, with some of the things that like we've been going through, like as a like just like as people, you know, especially with the pandemic, you know, like it really has come to a head with that. I feel like in just in terms of reflecting on like, oh shit, like a lot of things aren't as the curtain was lifted in a big way, you know. It's really interesting. Like this is one of those like goofy things where it's like, oh yeah, it's 2020. We're finally we're seeing under the underneath of the. We're seeing behind the curtain. We're seeing what's behind the curtain a little bit.
Totally.
I feel like in terms of what matters, but also what are our like most horrible, the most horrible parts of ourselves. I feel like are coming out too. Both. Both are coming out at the same
exposing
time.
a lot of shit.
Yeah, all the best in us and all the worst. Yeah, go ahead.
I I think it kind of also goes back to, like, do we think we can change, like, having the growth mindset? Because I feel like with my parents, like, with my mom, maybe, like, there's maybe a lot of backlash to some things I want to say to her. I know I don't know everything that happened to her, too. But I imagined that if I got to her age, I would think that I knew a lot more than younger people. And I really don't want to be like that person, that kind of person who is so stubborn, can't change like that. So, like, what is it about our mindset too, having like a fixed versus a growth mindset? How do we why don't we change? Like, why can't we think of ourselves as ever changing, things like that?
Mm-hmm.
And that goes back to the transformative experience thing. How do we think of transformation? How do we face it and stuff?
Yeah.
I don't really understand a lot about transformation.
I guess what I'm picking up on, like, in our conversation though, is that, like, a kind of a recurring theme is it's more like, it's not so much these moments that stick out, and maybe it's because actually, like, memory is like pretty, from what I understood studying this in college, like, it's pretty reconstructive, and it's influenced so much by where we are now, and our emotions are present, and, like, all of a sudden memories that haven't mattered in years, right?
Yeah.
An event can, like, bring those out of you,
yes.
right? And all of a sudden they're relevant to this current situation, this current moment, and then all of a sudden you're this different person, right?
You just actually reminded me, like, talking about politics a minute ago.
Yeah.
With, like, reminded me of probably 3 transformative experiences, and, like, I probably didn't think of them off the top of my head, because politics is something you kind of want to squash in the back of your head right now, especially for me, somebody who's very interested in politics and wanted to study politically based law. Like, I wanted to be a politician or something of the nature, or work for a nonprofit, whatever.
To a certain extent, I think, like, you and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but, like, there was a certain sort of patriotism that I, like, got out of you, like, that I sensed out of you when you were younger.
I used to be a very patriotic person.
Yeah, in terms of, like,
I said the Pledge of Allegiance every day in high school.
Yeah.
And, like, that creeps me out. That, like, I was indoctrinated that way.
That's crazy.
But, like,
and the fact that
like,
we had to.
yeah,
and stuff.
because, but now it's, like, different because I'm patriotic. I do not say that because I don't believe in the words of it.
Yeah.
And that's my right, so I won't say it ever again.
Yeah.
So, like, but what you reminded me of was 3 big experiences that happened and, like, shifted my view of my career a lot.
Yeah.
The day Donald Trump was elected, like, removed all my, like, preconceived notions of who could have power. Like, I can look at Richard Nixon and I can see a leader, and I can see a guy and look at history and know this man made good decisions at one point. Like, I'm capable of doing that. He saved us. We were going to have nuclear war with Russia or China or whoever at the time. Like, it was bad news bears. And, like, I have the ability to look back on that. I've never had the ability to look at Trump like that. And so that totally removed any notions I had that the powers that be in the world are the honest truth of who they are. They're somebody born to somebody much richer than me a long time ago. That's what I perceive of the presidency of the United States right now. That aside, the biggest experience, and the reason I'm probably going to cry in a minute, was realizing that Barack Obama was my childhood hero in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And then the experience that really bit was that Barack Obama fucked us in a lot of ways, and this is a cardinal sin to say as a liberal, and like, this is just fuel for Fox News or whatever conspiracy theorists. They're like, and that's the most heartbreaking thing, is because Barack Obama was my childhood hero, and like in 7th grade when we had that like mock election I could vote for him, like that was the coolest thing. And he was a cool guy. Yeah.
he did cocaine in college. And, like, that was fun. And, like, I know he's a good guy. I see his soul. I don't think Donald Trump has a soul. I know Barack Obama's a good guy. And I saw him become president. And I saw him, like, get down to the line. And I know with retrospect and whatever the FBI comes out with and the CIA releases about Eric Holder or the drones or the guns and the cartels, that, you know, whatever happened in the city of Chicago at the time, like, just bad shit, right? And I know there was a time when Barack Obama was sitting, making those decisions, being the good person that I know he is. And the nature of the job that existed, he could not say no. He didn't have the power. The power didn't, and that crushed me so badly that for 8 years, I thought that there was a good person in power. And that just does not exist. Because when it comes down to that moment where you have to say, no more Syrian children can die. No more kids in Yemen can die. Barack Obama, my childhood hero, could not say no. And, like, that's why, like, I have sympathy for George W. Bush now. I never empathized or sympathized with him then. But, like, that, it's just the country that I thought existed does not operate in that nature. And that was the revelation of my career, like, choice. Because it's just, you know, you're scared for your life. I think that's what happens. And Donald Trump's evidence of that. That man is scared for his life, and he's the first one that has absolutely no idea how to cope with it. He doesn't want to be assassinated. He doesn't want to take the guns away from the cartel. Like, he doesn't want Vladimir Putin to put a bullet in his brain. Like, and, like, that's, the president of the United States operates based on fear. And so that was the revelation that my life took. And so that's my answer to this question.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing all that, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for being open.
I hadn't thought about that in a long time.
There's something that I was thinking of when you were talking about that was back to my relationship with Marilyn Manson and Antichrist Superstar, and kind of what I think that album kind of seemed to show to me, like, early on, like in middle school, early high school, about celebrity and putting people on a pedestal, especially like public figures. And, you know, what's really interesting, I just realized as I said that, I was like, well, you still do that, Noah. You still put, but it's always people in your personal life that you want to kind of, to mean something, like to act as a hero. And, like, there's something really messed up in putting that on someone, right? And in elevating your expectations of someone's behavior to this superhuman level. But to a certain extent, like, the institution of the presidency, like, for so much, for all of our lives, that was what it was meant to do. You know, it was insulated in order to allow us to kind of, even as an agnostic, put faith in the president. You know, as a leader. And then seeing someone that who doesn't represent all of the values that you think that institution is supposed to uphold. In that office, it can feel violating, and that is a transformational moment. I just remember just feeling, just like, what is going, like, just like I couldn't cope with the moment. Like, I felt like the feeling of falling backwards, you know, off of, because it was even as I had like, I wasn't so certain that what was gonna, like, I had always had, because like it was just a moment, like, even as I had always kept that sort of like 20% in my head that would happen, you know, like that feeling of, like, I don't know, it still impacted me in a way that I was like, wow, really, this is happening. And it's happened every day since. It's wild. You know?
It's ongoing.
Yeah.
This is just making me think back to like the question about transformative experiences. It feels like there's two kinds. You can either transform inside, from inside, and it's something you do, or an exterior thing will transform you. And I feel with the exterior things, that's like a momental change, because it's something that happens outside, like you have no control, and the effects of it like fully change you in the moment. Whereas thinking back to all the experience I've had from myself, they've been like a long progression. Like it wasn't like cross country, like that was definitely something that changed me. Just doing something I didn't really want to do every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it wasn't like the first time I did it changed me. It took all 4 years basically. It's like, damn, I'm still doing this. And it's interesting, because like everything inside you is like this long push where you have to keep working for it. And it's this weird battle because you have to really work at it to make change, but the outside world can do something unpredictable in a single moment and totally redirect like your existence. That's like what's been going on with the pandemic and just everything going on. These crazy moments just fully changed everyone's course. And it's interesting, and I don't know, because then there's also the fact that it's up to you, like how you react to it. Like you can also create change in yourself. But yeah, I don't know. So like with being a president, do you think that's an impossible job?
Yeah, there's not supposed to be a country this big. You can't relate to enough people. Barack Obama's lived in Hawaii, Chicago. Donald Trump's lived in Florida and New York. Those two places are wild microcosms of, crazy,
They're basically
that are
different
not.
countries.
Look where we are now. People in Florida like look around here and they're like, "Where are all the gators?" Like, there's just people always say tribalism is bad, and it is in the way, history class talks about it. But, like, we do need to be from more unique places, I think. Like, that's the problem with the presidency. And that's what they always say is, like, the reason Joe Biden has to be president, he's the only one with name recognition, is, like, well, yeah, he's, like, the only guy everybody knows. And, like, that's why Donald Trump is president. Because it's like, oh, I know his fucking name. Like, that's so stupid. That's why they wanted Arnold Schwarzenegger to be president. Like, so that's the problem, is, like, we don't need a country this big. Like, and, like, one guy, it should be, like, 50 dudes. Like, it's governors makes sense.
Well, it's kind of what's going on right now with how they're handling the pandemic.
Yeah.
It's like we're almost kind of like 50 little countries with the open borders that we sometimes close.
You choose what you guys want
But
to
the
do.
states with the biggest amount of rebellion in them are big-ass dumb states that can't get their shit together. Like, California, Texas, like, they're, like, people in Northern California don't like the shit that the Southern Californians do. Like, upstate New York, not happy about downstate New York.
Can we get a tally on how many states Ben has insulted?
All right, Maryland. People from the Eastern Shore are a little snippy with people from Balmer. We're from big places. It's like, it's hard to relate. I think that's the biggest problem with the presidency is like, that's fine that works because we run the country like a corporation, and corporations make a point of not being familiar with the employees, aka all of us. So like, okay, cool, we can do that.
Yeah, you can't get to the big boss. He's too insulated.
My guy will go to your guy. He'll go to your guy. Guy's guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy we still run it this way, just because, I mean, back when we started this country and how much smaller it was, like, why we haven't changed anything, but...
Well, here's another, like, a revelation I had this year, just talking, like, going more into this. I went to Puerto Rico for the New Year, right?
Yeah.
That is a Spanish-speaking state. There is a whole state. It is a state. I'm saying it. I hope Puerto Ricans are happy to hear that. Because I think it's a state. everything's very American. Like, and I don't want that to sound like an insult to them. Like,
Well, it says made in America. Like anything that's made in Puerto Rico,
yeah, like
it's a territory.
and I
of the
feel
United
so
States.
bad that it's not a state. And the reason it can't become a state is because a bunch of racist people would find out that there is a state where they speak full blown ass Spanish all the time. Like it's insane. You walk around, there's like, it's just like America. People go to the malls the same way. They drink beer in the streets the same way. You see college kids texting and drinking coffee.
You can see that. You can see that in Queens, man.
yeah. Like it's,
like
it's
that's
so disturbing to me that Puerto Rico is not a state.
Yeah.
And
You think people just wouldn't be able to handle it?
I don't know. I don't know why it's not a state. It's for probably because you can pay the workers less or exporty like weird financial stash your money type stuff. I'm assuming. Like, why is DC not? Well, okay, because they would vote Democrat is pretty much why they're not a state, right? So.
I don't know, it's like kind of fucked up because like, you know, like the history of colonization in like the Pacific Islands too.
Oh yeah.
And some of those places are sending the most proportionately like soldiers on behalf of the U.S. Army. So like that history of like colonization and exportation
Guam
of culture
is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Hawaii is shady as fuck. Like, you know, it's
in terms of
not
in terms of how the U.S.
how it got it.
Yeah.
And location wise.
It was. I mean, a private corporation invaded the island.
Yeah, and that's just another.
You know, it's actually really similar to this Star Wars Episode 1, Phantom Menace. What's going on
we're
there?
back.
Yeah,
except we're the bad guys. the gun that they used to the grappling gun that they saw in Batman, and he was like, "I want that."
Yeah.
Yeah, those are good.
Yeah, that was a revelation I had. Well, the first revelation was like learning about the United States, figuring out not every place is the same, or even looks the same, or feels the same when you're there.
Yeah.
But also like,
Are you talking about like the actual place or the people?
Everything. Just like there's not like Kentucky looks different than Tennessee. Like whereas you know, ignorant people or generalists would be like, it's all that. And you know, it's just an easy way to do that, and I do that a lot. But like learning that just like each thing, and like learning that like this state hates that they all live there, and this state loves that they all live there, and like shit like that, and like and then just like Puerto Rico, where it's the same money, it's the same everything, literally everything the same except the language. And I hope that's not an insult to Puerto Rico. And like, but that's the problem, is I don't consider myself a racist, so, but there are racist people who will be like, look at all this, too much salsa music, blah, 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 blah. Like, there's those cultural differences. But in the terms of like, we're all humans and we all use the same money and we'd all benefit each other by including each other, those are the basic necessities for me making you a state. Like, any part of the world can be a state if you do those things, and they're already doing all those things.
Well,
They should be a state.
And you have to consider how the federal government responded to provide disaster relief.
Well,
and
that
if they had been a state, how that may have gone very differently.
Well,
in terms
that
of
would
how
it would have gone more differently because there would have been more oversight, and actually a big problem. Like Trump definitely didn't respond well, but there's a mafia problem in the big cities in Puerto Rico, which is no different than any other big city, because I know Fox News would be like, look at all this mafia activity in this city.
And Ben, you're going to get yourself in a lot of hit lists.
Yeah, I am. Alex Jones and I are going to have a charity boxing match. Anyways, like, what was I going with this?
Mafias.
Yeah, so a lot of the relief stuff got diverted, and like there was a story, New York Times got into that. Like, so that was also a problem in Puerto Rico, which would not be a problem if there was like an organization. I'm assuming there's more oversight when it is a state. So, you know, probably would have been less of a problem. But who do I know? I'm just speculating.
Well, what you said about like that, like what your experience finding Puerto Rico really kind of like a lot of American culture is also kind of part of just included within Puerto Rican culture. That kind of reminded me, and you probably know this, how like, Taiwan also, when I visited last year to study Mandarin, there's a lot of American culture there too.
Oh, really?
There are a lot of, and that's something that not a lot of Taiwanese people are happy about, because knowing their reliance on the U.S. for political reasons and economic reasons. That's something. Yeah.
I remember observing
They don't
similar
want-
things in terms of how like people in Portugal would kind of talk about the U.S. politics and Portugal's relationship with the U.S. This was when Barack Obama was the president, but they would always compare, like, I thought it was so interesting that that so many Portuguese people would have a preference for Barack Obama over George Bush. Like, but like the Iraq War was something that a lot of Europeans were just like, what are we doing right now?
Yeah.
And so, I think it's really interesting how just like you're not taught when you're in school that you are part of an empire at its zenith. like they tell you that, but they don't tell you all the things that are like, oh my god, what?
Well, yeah,
like what all the like they tell you about like the good stuff, but not.
I remember Mr. Livermore being like, all right, the Roman Empire ended because the generals had all the armies and they ran away with the money and the stuff, just a general list of military, warfare nonsense, right? Yeah. Wealthy people, all... And then, like, 4 years later, you find out who Dick Cheney is.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, that's that guy from the Roman Empire who's like, I built an army, I own it, I'm also president, my wife is technically the president.
Yeah.
Miss Cheney was running the show. If anybody wants to dispute me on that, I'll fight you.
another list.
Yeah, the Cheneys have got me now.
Shit.
Anyway,
every cartel,
at
least 5 U.S. states, including the two biggest ones, or
Okay,
two of the biggest ones, California.
The Boy Scouts of
Texas.
America by now, I think.
You've been going off. I mean,
Yeah.
You guys are gonna get chased back home.
Yeah. Well, we were chased by something coming out here. You know, just like okay, so like Ben and I had this joke before we were coming out here that we were running to the edge of the map, so that the horde of enemies that's chasing us can't catch us.
Yeah,
and we're just gonna like get there really fast. So we got like,
and then we have a few minutes to prepare before the rest of the video game characters can catch up to us.
Shit.
Yeah, and it was interesting because it was actually
like
about
Nazi zombies.
it was like maybe like 2 weeks before we actually got to the point here where like some of like, I guess, things that we've been worried about at home, all of a sudden we were worried about them again, you know, like, because when you first get to a place, you're just like excited by all the novelty and the newness.
Yeah, totally.
And it took about 2, like, and it kind of hit us all at the same time, you know. That sort of, and that I actually think that like, so going like, I think that this trip for me is definitely been very like, I've had a lot of like transformative, or what it's hard because like right now I'm experiencing it, right? But like I do think that this has been I think you guys have like kind of brought up that it's more of a series of changes, but like oftentimes like when you kind of draw a box around where those changes are going to occur, it does become almost like kind of an experiment, you know, with the self, you know, and an experiment in growth, or trying to grow, or trying to change, even if like maybe you don't want to grow, maybe you just want to like cut off that root that's like, you know, not helping, or that branch that's dead, you know, maybe there's pruning involved in terms of like what development looks like. But
is that what you got from this trip?
No, I think no. I think what I'm getting a lot out of this trip is more of a, you know, it's kind of that like long drawn out, like it does feel like the end of something a little bit, and I don't get that feeling often, you know. And I think it's because it's exposed to me how little I know, how little things that I worry about on a daily basis actually matter. Like because I was I've been lucky to be able to keep my job during the pandemic and work online, right? So I haven't been having this experience that everyone else has been having of, you know, waking up and just being like, oh, I'm just inside, you know, another day. Especially when it first was happening, you know, of like, I was having the experience of being inside, but I was still like, I had something to do. It was like, okay, you're inside, but like you
had responsibilities.
Yeah, and like I think it was more like, and really that first month that I wasn't, because I work a little in the summer, but not as much. You know, the first moment that wasn't as present. I began to like definitely feel that kind of sinking, that falling feeling, you know, that like, you know, going like that kind of like just kind of retreating. Cause like, it's like, well, you know, where was I going before all this happened anyway? You know, like, did I really like, cause that's the thing I realized is like, I was just I feel like I was kind of just riding along a little bit. And I think that like what this has shown me is like needing to both like be more clear in my intentions, you know, like, or just like just be clear in my intention and what like I actually want to pursue and want to be around and want to kind of, I guess, feel on a day-to-day basis, you know, like actually being able to like kind of tend to that garden, you know, a little bit. And yeah, I feel like there's that piece, but then it's also the opposite side of that it's kind of balanced out by is this idea of like needing to let go sometimes of like, because like I don't know, this sort of trip isn't something that I normally like, I just like I never really honestly I'd ever been that interested in coming out here. You know, I had been curious but never like, oh yeah, like this is something like, and I just kind of never thought of it, you know.
Why'd you come out here? Because
it's been a slow, I feel like 2 years of kind of this coming to kind of this like head, this point, you know. And a lot of that's I think like early adulthood transitions, you know, going from being a college student to being a young adult. And I just remember like when I was living in LA, my roommate just telling me, now they're like another person I met who was like pretty cool, and like both of them were like, you just seem like really fresh out of college. like, and I was like, yeah,
seem new to this.
yeah. And it's just like, it's really funny in retrospect. I really thought I had a lot of things figured out, especially because like when you get, I don't know, like I just thought I thought my degree meant, you know, it's not that I thought it meant something. Actually, I wanted it to mean something. Like it wasn't meaning anything to me for like it's not that it doesn't mean anything. It's that it doesn't mean what I thought it was going to mean.
No.
You know?
It's not useful emotionally.
No, it really isn't. And like, I feel like that's maybe something, because you know what, like I think for my mom it was, because like she went back to school later.
Yeah.
And I saw that mean so much to her to finally.
Not just that. My mom didn't go back to school later. It's just like a college degree in your parents' mind means more, probably more to them than it does to you.
Yeah,
'Cause it gives them
certainly.
peace of mind. Yeah.
But like I had that added. I think also this other layer of like, oh, like, because I felt really proud of my mom graduating. I didn't care when I did it. I was like,
yeah,
and like it happened.
Graduating high school was like.
It happened twice. It happened.
Totally.
It was high school.
Yeah.
It was college again, and you know, like, and actually, college in general, I feel like, you know, I was really lucky to be able to do, especially in terms of art, like in theater, getting to do like a lot of really cool stuff. That, you know, I don't know if I'd been able to do that in another place, and I'm really lucky that I got to do that sort of thing. But at the same time, I felt like that was almost like there is a certain level of like, that is an alternate reality, right? And like it is separate from like the like a theatrical production, right? Like it's a story, it's that you're telling. It's not. Yeah. It's not the. I think to a certain extent, I think I was doing a lot of processing the experience of being in college while I was in college. So much processing of that experience, I don't think I was living in it as much, you know. And you can get like, I was overly like, and that I think can get you into a really bad headspace, you know. And I feel like I'm realizing now, oh, that's not realizing now. I feel like, again, it's been a slow realization over 2 years, how many of those things that like you're just conditioned to growing up, expect that X equals Y, you know, like, or, you know, this A plus B equals C, you know, if you do these things, then these will be the results. and one of them I think was happy, like, you know, but like that's the thing is like you have to pursue that yourself, you know. I think which sounds corny, but like at the same time, like we were talking, I feel like earlier when we were talking about all the things that like you either like with transformative experiences, it's either something that you pursue or it's something that just kind of like sneaks up and slaps you in the face, right?
Right.
I feel like if you're not pursuing something, then you're just gonna keep getting slapped around, you know.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's that thing of like if you're pursuing something, like you can't pretend that you have something in your hands that you don't. You gotta let go.
What's up? I'ma do.
I haven't met
John
that-
Lennon, Ringo Starr, Paul McCartney.
Me?
Yes.
I love those two men.
Huh?
I love Ringo Starr and Paul McCartney.
Me no speak English.
No?
Me no speak good English. Me Africa.
Dude.
Africa here.
Nice.
Hey.
How's it going, man?
French.
We?
Vous parlez français?
No.
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 Me,
Bon.
Yeah, we don't
Bon?
speak.
me here.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
sleeps
yeah,
here.
yeah.
He's homeless. He just kind of
Yeah,
crashes here.
Abdel
Yeah. Nice.
and the white ass boy. What's his name?
He's not important.
How you doing, guys?
Doing good.
What?
Okay,
Jesus.
that's Amadou.
Does he speak
Mama do.
English?
Yeah, perfectly.
Yeah. Okay. Fuck me, dude.
Okay.
There's not one person I've introduced him to who he hasn't done that for. So now I
God.
just sit back and like. let him do his
Does
thing.
he actually speak French?
Yeah, he does speak French.
Okay.
So.
Well,
He's from Senegal.
I tried to say good, but he didn't respond to that. Bon.
he's a goof.
Is he making? Well, yeah, he's making fun of us.
Yeah. Yeah. I knew it the second he opened the door. I was like, oh, that guy's gonna fuck with us.
No.
Anyways,
That was a transformational moment.
yeah.
Totally. Him living here was a transformational moment.
Going back to what you were saying about like, shit, I had a great point. I was gonna wrap it back to my point.
Damn. What were you saying?
I was saying something about.
You're talking about the cycle of socialization, and for you it was about education and what that means to,
Oh yeah.
like, to your mom and how that kind of affected you. I know for me, like, I thought, like, oh, I put pressure on myself, like, oh, I want to do something for my parents or my grandparents on their behalf, and that's something that I'm, like, avoiding. That's what you said about transformational experience. Like, you can either pursue it or you're gonna be slapped by it. Boom, 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 boom. And I feel like I, like, always would try to run away from that. I think one thing I'm trying to not, like, wrap my head around is, like, my relationship with my family, because I feel like that's really important to me. But I think because of that, I don't know if I think my sense of self is really connected to my family, but it's harder for me to understand how people are more individual, because that's not the way I was socialized. And similarly with education too, thinking like, oh, what's the meaning of education, that being a motivating factor for me. And then, so what I think I want to do now more is, because I sometimes reflect back and, like, something, like a memory jumps out to me and I'm like, I don't want to think about that. I was so embarrassed by that. And, like, I never really reflect on that. I'm, like, avoiding reflecting on that and seeing how that's connected to, how my feelings are connected to the way I grew up, my environment, and how that influenced me. And for me to still not try to approach that version of me from the past, that's something I'm holding myself back from.
Your like past environments holding you back?
Yeah, I feel like that, because I think I was also pretty sheltered. I just only knew my home, my school in Chinatown.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool about New York too. A lot of insular neighborhoods, you could walk across the street and it's a whole different place, and people completely different.
Well, that's what kind of like gets me riled up about lying to children. It's like it's not lying. It's like a form of lying by omission. It's not your parents' fault for taking you to those cool places and not to other places that might have taught you other things. Like,
well, yeah. And when is it right to like, you know, thinking back to Pocahontas? What's the right
time to do that?
What's the right time to tell kids a whitewashed story about genocide? You know, ever?
Yeah.
We can do this, honey.
Or when's the right time to let them watch Beauty and the Beast, which is about an abusive relationship working out? You know, like, you know, like there's, and then there's the flip side of like, well, you know what, like abusive relationships exist. It's like should kids not? And is it just the takeaway, or is it the fact that they're exposed to the concept at all? And there are certain things that, like, if you do try to explain to a kid too early on, right, it's not good for them.
Well, that's the thing.
Including things like, especially really traumatic cultural events and, you know, violence. They're not really ready to understand that level of.
Well, that's a thing. Yeah. And like, but that's another problem. This is a big problem. A lot of kids learn about sex from like Law and Order SVU, shit like that. That's like, murder shows are so synonymous with rape murder shows, and those shows are so synonymous with being on every night.
Yeah,
like kids see that shit. The first adult content probably all of us consumed was something like ER or NCIS, CSI. Our parents were like, I'll try this show. You saw it in the background. The dun-dun was scary. Like, that's, like, and like...
It was scary.
We watched Dexter at a bad age.
Yeah.
12, 13.
Yeah,
like, that's
like
nonsense.
A lot of Dexter.
Yeah, like that. And I learned a lot about sex, and I saw a lot of the first naked women I ever saw on that show, because it was like the first show I ever watched with nudity. That could easily be extremely unhealthy, I think.
Well, that
learning
show,
about
that show
sex
is
in,
very. That show is violent and
learning about sex should not be congruous with
misogynistic
murder
at times.
shows.
Yeah,
it's. Sure. And like we can forget about all those things that are just general Hollywood qualms.
Yeah.
But that learning the fact that somebody should have sat me down first and been like, "Hey, sex exists."
Yeah.
Now and explain all that thoroughly first before I even entertain the idea that, hey, sex can be horrible. It can be it can be used in the worst ways, and like that is so scary that kids are that just doesn't sit right with me. That's the lying to kids that's the thing is like it people there are people who like learn about murder by watching a family member being murdered. Like that is bad.
Yeah.
So I believe that there needs to be a way to introduce kids to those topics in a healthy way. And I don't know how it exists. I don't know what world that we live in that's possible.
Well, it definitely wasn't the way that my parents did it, for sure. I mean, like, there was a lot of just general kind of, like, on my mom's side, omission, right? Mm-hmm. Because I think so much of, like, the gender aspect made her feel like, well, this is like they're boys, and so whatever they go through in puberty, that's not really that's outside. Mm-hmm. As long as they turn out to be like good guys when they're adults. So like it always just like I felt like the standard that I was kind of held to growing up was like, as long as like when adults are around, you act like a little like kind of like stand-up guy, right? Then you can be
a little man.
Yeah, and like keep in mind like I grew up like at that point I was my mom was single and she was like living she was living like it was a single parent house, and so I was the oldest kid. So like that's just what it was, and that feeling of like, oh, I'm like responsible, early on, like that. Now I look back on that and I'm like, oh, that's something that you carried with you to college that like held you back because you're like, oh, who am I responsible for? Yeah, and it's like you dumbass.
Use your sense of what your responsibility should be.
Yeah, and I was working like when I didn't need to, and like feeling like I needed to, accomplish certain things that like my peers didn't care. Like they just
doing it for your peers.
Well, I was
For the boys.
because it was like
boys.
no, it was like I guess it was like kind of an imposter syndrome thing, you know, wanting to accomplish something
Yeah.
because you didn't feel like you deserved to be there, right?
Yeah.
And at the same time, it was really funny because I would simultaneously pursue stuff that I actually was meaningful to me, and that was all like more creative projects, and then I would also pursue stuff that I was like, oh yeah, I know that this would maybe be meaningful to my family. This would be maybe meaningful to a career that I don't necessarily want, you
Yeah.
know, and so. Yeah, I think actually, like, in terms of transformational experiences, I think that, like, I posed the question, I feel like, to a certain extent, like, maybe I think of, I just remember all these moments where it felt like my life was tilting, you know, and that happens a lot, you know, and maybe that's just the way I experience certain things. Definitely graduating was one, but not in the way it felt like sliding off of something again, you know. Like I feel also like a lot of my life kind of tends to go in like these 2-4 year cycles where like I feel like I spend 2 years kind of tearing myself apart so that I can spend another 2 years like kind of like making something better. And then usually like and that becomes valid. It's not that it's like it's better for that moment, you know, and like it's that kind of like the drunk man's walk, right? Where you're just trying to stay
Knocking
on the
yourself
line,
into place,
yeah,
yeah.
but like
Everybody needs to know the story of how that hat ended up on your wall.
yeah, exactly. Everyone needs to know the story of how. Yeah, and this hat is right for this moment, but like,
This is not gonna last long.
no, it's not. The hat's
Yeah,
the
wear
hat,
it while you can, Karina. The
Yeah.
time is short.
the hat can't stay on your head forever, man.
Yeah.
Although I have slept with it on.
You can leave
Well, that's impressive.
your head on.
Yeah, I think that yeah, I can definitely think of like a few. Like I remember a couple of things like related to my parents' divorce as being like really transformational. Like the specific, like they're seared in my brain. Certain like definitely like deaths in my family. Like when my grandpa died. When both of my grandfathers died. When my great grandmother died. Like so I was really close with her. When I was a kid. I just remember those as like really like kind of like being like these things where it's like, oh shit,
Yeah.
oh shit.
Yeah. There's levels to this.
And like I also remember like actually like having like kind of, I feel like the past 2 years have been kind of like a series of kind of like those sorts of moments of like but like it's more of a slow roll. You know, like whereas when it's a kid it's just like, okay, here you go,
Smacking
here you
yeah.
go. Here's another one where like and like I think for me it like this it's almost been like, oh, you thought that those were those things, they're these other things. There's that kind of like it's almost like there was these series of tilts and I had built like this whole structure to kind of like hold it back, but then like there's another thing underneath of it that tilted the whole thing. Does that make sense?
Fuck.
like just a bunch of seesaws on top of one another. I didn't realize there was another seesaw down there. There's also this like old thing or like this saying about like this all turtles all the way down.
Turtle? No.
Yeah, like it's this. I think it is I think it's from Buddhism maybe, but like I definitely I'm not a Buddhist, so I don't want to say that it's just. But like I've seen this thing on the internet before.
Okay.
And I've seen it multiple places, so it must be some sort of like folk saying or something or religious saying.
This to me before,
Yeah,
like a quote.
but it's like this guy asks a wise man or a monk or something, you know, where like what holds up the world, you know, what keeps the world from falling down, and like he's like, oh, it's like a herd of 10 elephants that's just holding up the world, and he's like, okay, so like what holds up the elephant? And it's like a giant turtle. Elephants are all standing on the giant turtle's back. And he's like, okay, what's under the turtle? He's like, another turtle. He's like, what's under that turtle? Another turtle. Is it? And then he's like, so like how far do we get? And he's like, it's just turtles all the way down, man. Like
Just looks him dead in the eye.
yeah, it's just turtles all the way down, man.
Oh,
You just keep
God.
going. Like, and I feel like that's also like a useful like sort of metaphor for navel gazing, you know, like when when you're like that's sort of like when you're thinking when you're all in your head, you know, and you're like like when you're like doing that sort of negative self-talk where like something's bothering you, you're not looking in the eyes, so you're just kind of running through this other thing in your head. I don't know, I don't know how often that happens to you guys, but like, I definitely when I'm frustrated, I feel like that's the
Totally.
experience. You know.
Yeah,
Yeah. So what I was thinking is, so you can tell me if this is what it happened, what you're feeling, but is when you're tilted, feeling no, when you're feeling like you're tilting, is that after a transformative experience occurs and you're like, oh, I'm like losing grip on your sense of self, because like it's already different, but you are already different, but it's not the way you thought it was before.
Yeah.
And so it's that kind of like
Yeah.
little hesitating moment before you kind of keep going.
It's that moment. It's that moment between. It's that moment between learning something and experiencing something, and then deciding how you're going to respond to
Okay.
that. if
Learning
at all.
something,
you know.
experience something.
Does that make sense?
yeah. I feel like I've experienced the tilt in transitional phases. So like college to adulthood, like full tilt. You know.
Yeah.
Just trying to regather yourself, because you're in if you're doing things a whole new way, everything's different, doesn't really make sense. You have to kind of regather your thoughts from the past and re-examine all of it. Like it's almost like spring cleaning, you know, with everything, you know, going through like how you would go about things, and just like disruption in general has been the biggest transformative thing, or transformative moments. Like just when like chaotic situations, injuries, dude, definitely like
That's interesting.
breaking my arm was mentally, it was like super transformative, and it happened like in a single moment, and it really spurred this idea of how crazy our bodies are and how we're designed and how we're capable of these crazy things, and how you can train yourself and regrow. Like, because I straight up saw my arm like folded in half and then able to like fully function with it now. Like
in that image in my like that hit me.
Yeah.
Right? And I didn't even experience it. Right. And
yeah.
I just think it's so cool that like you and like I feel like other people I know like have that experience of like their body like telling them something, like because like the only experience I have with that is being scared like because of medical stuff. Like just like more like kind of like just like, oh, is like my body just gonna like collapse all of a sudden because like it just happens to crap
I
out.
thought he
Early.
was having a heart attack last week.
Oh shit.
For like 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's
It was-
terrifying.
But it was tightness in the
Hard
chest. But it was,
burps.
yeah, it was just yeah, it was gassy.
Too much root beer.
Yeah, right.
No, I think those were blue raspberry sodas.
Yeah,
that week.
Oh.
Yeah, like so, like basically, I just think it's so like because for me, I only have like the negative side of that. I feel like
Yeah.
because I don't know like other actually running cross country. Like I feel like certain accomplishments I made during that, like that's the most I felt in my body.
Yeah.
You know, because most of the time I just kind of like I don't know, maybe like I'm just not. I don't know. I feel like a lot of what I experience has to do like with like me. I'm just sitting, and it's just like, and I'm seeing something. You know, like a lot of. I feel like the most. Yeah.
Just processing.
Yeah. Well, I just feel like I'm not a super. Just not a super physical person, you know, and so like I'm not a dance. I'm jealous of people who can dance.
Yeah.
And I also know the thing of like, well, everyone can dance. Like everyone, like honestly, most like bad dancing is because you're nervous. Like most people, like if they just like kind of flail around, like it actually looks fine. And then if enough people are doing it, it just means the social context is fine. Which is why like you watch videos of people in the '80s and you're like, well, they look like dorks, but they're having fun. Like when they're doing their like.
Oh yeah.
That is fun.
Yeah, it is fun.
It's a damn good time. Oh shit.
And there's good dancing in the '80s too, but
The camera can't even see me. I was dancing.
we could dance.
We
could
could
dance.
Yeah.
We could dance if you want to. You can leave your friends behind.
That's
That's such a
Hopefully we didn't trigger
manipulative
the
song.
Copyright.
That's such a manipulative song. He's like, hey, we can dance if you want to. You can leave your friends behind. He's like, wait, hold on.
Come with me,
He's
little boy.
fucking creepy, dude. The creepiest dude at the club ever. We can dance if you want to. Leave your friends. What? Already? Oh, that was fast, dude.
Oh shit.
Very forward.
You want to dance? Leave your friends.
Only if you leave your friends. I'm
Only,
not.
dude, you have to leave your friends right now.
Got
Text
space for
them
one.
right now. Facebook unfriend.
You want to dance? Gotta leave your friends.
Yeah. That's why, like, what's that?
Manipulative.
If you want to be my lover, I thought that song, I thought that was a revelation in my life.
Hey,
Whoa.
I thought, if you want to be my lover, I thought it was, if you want to be my lover, you have to get with my friends, as in, you have to fuck my friends.
Yeah, wait.
Like, I thought it was a song that the lady was like, yeah, if you wanna get with me, you should try to fuck my friends, and I'll think that's attractive. That's what I thought the song was about.
Dude, me too.
Yeah, it's not. They say it's
No,
not.
it's not. It's about like how
You better
like,
be friends, like buddy up with my friends.
Yeah, my friends better like you.
Okay, I'm glad I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Andreas. Yeah, but that's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
You want to be my lover? It's lover.
Is that
lover.
when guys
You better
when
get with.
like, here's my
Get with
question.
Tyler.
Yeah.
I'm curious because like you're not the first person who's responded that affirmatively to that. Like I just feel like there's a lot of people out there like, and I feel like more of the male leaning persuasion, right? Who are just like, oh
Who are
yeah,
like, yes,
yeah,
oh, finally,
this song's a
confirmation.
jam. It's
Yeah.
really poppy, but they
Did you
want
hear
it.
what they said?
Yeah.
Yo, I'm gonna fuck
Like,
that other
what's
girl.
wrong with you guys? Like, you guys know that that's not true in real life, so why
I
do you
know,
think
that's
it's true
why
in
I thought
that
it was a
song?
ludicrous
Is
song.
that song is a fantasy for you?
If I didn't-
That song is pornographic.
If I didn't think that,
Your experience of that song.
if I didn't think
is
that
some
about that
disgusting
song,
fantasy.
Yeah.
if I didn't think that about that song, I would never think about that song. That's the only way, because that's a ludicrous, and now it bores me. And when it comes on, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that's obvious.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like I like edgy music, and I thought that was edgy, but it's not. Just like, you gotta be friends with my friends. Like, yeah, that shows a deeper misogyny. Andreas and I just thought it was bonkers. We were like, okay, new rules, cool.
It's a
But
ridiculous
the
song.
old rules were insane. Like, how did dudes not know that? Like, yeah, you should be friends with your girlfriend's friends, you dick.
Well,
Like, come on.
We need a song about this.
Yeah,
but not.
That's
Too,
so-
I mean, honestly, not too friendly, right, Karina?
Well, see, that's the thing. I thought they were going
Another
totally
question.
opposite direction.
Yeah.
That's, like, it's wild.
We're either all in this or none of us.
I feel like the line that you guys are struggling to find, the double yellow in the center, it's pretty clear.
No, I don't think it
It's
is.
pretty blurred, bro. I'm seeing
Well,
two lines.
I thought it.
There
I
are 2 lines.
I thought it was clear.
4 lines.
I thought it was clear that you should be friends with your girlfriend's
Yeah,
friends.
yeah.
So I didn't think it was possible that she would have to take the time out of her day to have to tell somebody that. So I thought she was like, you know what? Nobody knows that if you want to be fuck me, you have to fuck my friends. So we need to make a song about this.
Dude,
So I
what
thought it was
about
like
the
a
part where-
public
what-
service
okay.
announcement.
What about the part where they're going like,
I don't listen. Okay, I don't listen. I don't
never
listen to that. I don't listen to that.
Okay, yeah, but like that part, like that's just like, is that just like it's just like, but why can I do that? Friendship never ends. Oh, okay, cool. Then in that case, I'm on board. It's like
That is a good point. It's not a strong song, even in that sense.
just the fact that it has the lyric
Friendship never ends.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just imagine her like sitting there, like, God damn it, he won't be friends with my friends. I got to write a song. Like, he's not gonna listen to me any other way.
Or maybe is the song implying like you're gonna still have to be friends with my friends even after our love ends, because our love will end,
Yeah.
but friendship never ends.
Friendship
Yeah.
never ends.
Yeah, like really, she's just trying to recruit more friends for her.
yeah, yeah.
Like,
I'll
but
sleep-
that's how it works in high school, pretty much. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like I don't know, like we've gotten in fights, we've definitely gotten in arguments though before, like about like being friend, like to what extent like we're friends with one another's friends, and we make an effort to like, because like we didn't necessarily in college when we met, we weren't part of the same groups of friends really.
Yeah.
We just we met more in a kind of working together.
Yeah.
So
working on
because
a
of that,
show
like that's always been
together.
like a kind of a thing.
Show. Yeah. I feel like that's another part of the messaging of that song, because like having to be accepted in a certain way, I think that's also a part of that messaging there, being accepted by other people in order to be accepted by one person. And that's something that I kind of I think I first thought that you know, you had to be accepted by my friends, and that's a realization that I made, that like maybe my friends weren't the same people that they
Did they not accept
Yeah.
you?
but like
Karina definitely like Karina had a group of friends at one point that was
It's a wild story.
Oh, shit.
yeah, and there's no point in telling
and
it.
No,
maybe
that's- yeah,
they're
like,
different
it's too
people.
complicated.
Yeah, it's
Maybe
it's
they're different
but
people
like
now,
people
too.
like everyone's
Yeah.
had falling outs
Yeah.
in their life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but like
totally.
there was definitely a moment early on when we started dating where a falling out with friends like definitely affected also like our relationship in a way, and kind of also I would almost say that was transformational in a way, because that really was like kind of the first big moment that we experienced together that wasn't like
So
just
you wanted
us.
to be you want to be her lover, so you got with her friends.
No. I want to clarify that is not what happens.
So like,
no.
so if you want to be a lover, you don't necessarily have to
It was just
Oh,
be
it's-
friendly with my friends.
So
But-
that you kind of lived that song a little bit. in
But
reverse,
friendship
maybe?
never ends.
The friendship
Did
never
the friendship end?
ends. And that's the question: was there a friendship? What was that friendship like? What was that? Because they were like, we can't be your friends anymore if you're still with this person. So, and I think they've really changed too since then. But I feel like still like we've kind of lost touch, and like even when I'm reaching out to them, I feel like I really want to like reconnect with them. But like I don't know, it's hard to do that, like, which is something I really admire about what's happening here. Like, this is a years ago
yeah, that was,
friendship,
yeah.
and you guys are meeting up again, which is really
Yeah.
really cool. Like you can do that. It's like just a hop, skip, stone away. Did I say that right? But
We'll
it's
go with
really
it.
close, and I don't know if I'll ever patch up with those friends. And something I regret too, like those friendships are just, it could be just in the moment. So how can you make the most out of
Yeah,
it?
but yeah, there's definitely, again, yeah, it's like the relationships that you have, and when, especially when moments force us to reevaluate those relationships in any way, whether it's, you know, one relationship impacting another relationship, or just you being impacted by circumstances in your life and not affecting the way that you relate to people who are meaningful to you, and yeah, those are the moments that I look back on as being the ones that are the most kind of gut punchy, and the most kind of stand out. So that's my answer to my question.
Yeah, I feel that people are interesting because you really gotta be particular with who you keep in your life, and because you really become the people you hang out with the most, and not holding on to friendships if they're hurting you, which is a weird thing because you build this connection with people, and it's hard to just cut people out and stuff, but you got to just know what's helping you become the person you want to become, and other relationships where you're just feeding into their energy and it's taken away from you.
You know, in religion, that's like a big part of, like, you know, like knowing when to like be like, no, enough's enough.
No.
Enough of your bullshit. Satanism. Like, actually, if you look at the tenets of Satanism, like, one of them is, it's just like, it's your life, you're an individual. Like, if someone's like being an ass to you, you don't need to like be nice to them. Like, just like tell them to fuck off.
Yeah.
Or if like honestly, if like that's, or go away, like get them out of your life. You know, it isn't this whole thing of like, oh yeah, you need to do something. You need to convince yourself that there's something wrong with you that you need to change because someone's wronging you. I want to say I'm not a Satanist, although I do I think different religious systems are interesting, and that's definitely one that when I saw that in there, I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting, like this kind of like idea of how respect seems to be codified in that. So yeah, or emphasized, that kind of like idea of like respect for yourself and pride in your experience. That can definitely be taken to an extreme and make you a giant ass.
Totally.
But most I think most ideals, if taken to an extreme, right, and lived out to their most inane, stupid, and simplest applications, I think would turn us all into jerks.
Yeah.
I have two more revolutions that probably are kind of bush league, but they're drug related. So we can cut this out if Noah can't, be on. You know what I mean? Because I'm about to talk about drugs.
Well, you're allowed to talk about drugs.
Okay,
I mean,
we'll cut this part out. Okay, so So
I don't know.
reminds.
What are drugs?
That reminds.
I worked.
So
No,
tell
I do want to say I did work in a psychopharma. Well, a lab that studied drug addiction for 3 years. So I know a little bit about it. So yeah.
Right on.
Anyways, so marijuana. I've always been a consumer of art, I guess, not like fine paintings or anything, but like I watched a ton of TV as a kid. I watched a ton of movies as a kid. I could quote most of the first 2 seasons of The Office off the top of my head.
Nice.
I've watched a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff in my head, a lot of actors' names, blah 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 blah. And I've always loved that shit, but I didn't realize how much I liked it until I started consuming marijuana, because also with marijuana you get to accept that certain things about life that were considered for lazy people or whatever, liking TV too much and marijuana go together. But TV, it's a money-making business. You're allowed to be interested in television. That's such a fucked up thing. It makes so many people so much money that it's crazy that people discourage you from being interested in it, even in the most superficial way. I could be a cameraman. I could do that. I could go and learn how to do that, and I would love it, and I could do it. It'd be fun, right? So but marijuana. So I got to accept that I could be interested in it, and I wasn't ashamed that I watched so much TV or consumed so much television or listened to so much music. But it also gave me the ability to analyze art and be because it makes you introspective, and it for the first time I was I had the thoughts that marijuana gave me, and that I still use now when I consume marijuana are I see past I see the production of it, and so now I'm always critiquing movies, and it's marijuana came to me at a time in life when I was losing interest in those things, because I had seen and I just watched, and I didn't know how to analyze, I didn't know how to critique, and that's probably a problem with my writing early in college as well, and I wasn't introspective like that or observant of the process. And so when I watched, I could see, oh, that was a joke. They wrote that joke. That was in that. And it gave me more joy to think about the process. So, marijuana, what it does to your brain gives you the ability to see that kind of thing. And that's kind of why I think all English teachers have smoked pot at some point. Because, in high school, you're just no, the author didn't mean that. Stupid shit like that. And some people can think that way without smoking pot, and those are probably just healthy, normal individuals. But or
they were just smoking pot in high school.
I just mindlessly consumed content because I enjoyed it, and that's people shame people for that.
Yeah.
Even bookworms, why do you have to call them a bookworm? Fuck you.
Yeah.
Even books are supposed to be good for you. So that's what marijuana did in my life, because I like art. But now I have the ability to say, and even now I can go to an art museum and I like that picture because I like the paint strokes, and it just gave me the ability to analyze my emotions in relation to the stuff and see the process because of that. And
I remember watching like Louis when I was just reaching this period and being like, oh,
Yeah.
there's like he did it. The process is there, and I know, and I can picture the life experience. And because I listened to stand up, I got to hear some of the real life experiences from the show. But I got to see. I was like, oh, that's a life experience that I can take and I can make into content. And I saw how Louis did that. I saw how fucking. Trying to think of somebody who's not been Me Too'd. Patton Oswalt does it. Okay, so like, you know, like shit like that, you know, that's what marijuana did for me.
You saw the link between the artist and their output, which is the process.
Yes.
So you begin to see that.
That
came into focus. And yeah, I remember having. I feel like because I definitely took a few film studies courses in college. Early on, I thought I might want to double major in film or something.
Yeah.
And I remember like really just the sheer amount of really good film that I got to like, or just like, and movies I got to see on like old film reels and like. Just getting to see really, really old movies, right? And having someone explain, like, actually explaining the production behind some of these movies and, like, how they shot this stuff. And it's like, oh, wow. That's, like, this is really creative. And, you know, I almost think that that's what made me, like, want to, at one point, like, be involved in, like, film or television or something like that. And... like, I guess, like, to a certain extent, like, that sort of, like, environment is still, like, when I was younger, like, that's what I cared about was, like, TV and stories and those sorts of things.
Yeah. But now it's, like, I live the stories, so I need to fill in the other parts, like, the format and the jokes and the music and whatever. And so I think THC especially, has given me that ability to think of things as, and this is the other, I didn't talk about this yet, music. There's this theme, this theme that I keep having on this trip, and it's a constant theme in my life, is that music, there's a certain point after listening to music for like 2.5 hours where all I can listen to anymore is the Beatles. And like, I've tried really hard this trip not to listen to the Beatles that much, but like, all music is the Beatles. Kendrick Lamar is the Beatles. And that's because I can see the process, and music is the best example of what I'm talking about. I don't know what THC does to music in your brain, but I can see the chord progressions, and I can hear the that song, and then I think, oh, that's a Kendrick song, that's a Beatles song as well, like that, and I see that song is so many, and like the link between, that's something I never understood, how music is made, the chord progression. Like this song is the same exact as this song, the chord progressions are different, they sing it on this, they come in on this beat, that's the difference. But the problem with the Beatles is it's the first band I was ever introduced to, so all those are emotional memories, you know, fucking, you know,
it's the switchboard that you run other things through.
Yeah, exactly. And so like, that like I cannot, like, Green Day is the Beatles to me now, just because of the way Paul McCartney plays the bass and the way the guy in Green Day plays the bass. And most people would be like, that's not that similar, but it's, you know, Green Day listened to a lot of the Beatles in high school.
Yeah.
And so, like, that's my problem, is just, like, well, now I think it's really cool. And because of that, but that's the problem, is in that way it's shrunk my listening, because I keep going back to the same thing, because I'm like, if I listen to this, then I have to listen to this, and I keep going back. But now I can be like, oh, that little thing just, like, tickled my ear the same way Helter Skelter did. But this is a, you know, like, this is a, you know, like a hipster rapper who, like, plays, like, a banjo while he raps. And it's just like, oh, the, like, genres are meld together.
Yeah.
Like, I think this is evidence, like, comedians say this a lot, like, comedians don't watch comedy. Most stand-up comedians I can think of watch pretty much, like, NCIS, like, murder, like, shit like that. And it's because I think at a certain point, when you become a creative person, genres all the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's all kind
Yeah,
of built
because
the same.
you're not thinking about or you should. I shouldn't be so prescriptive, but like, I've never heard of someone thinking about what they're trying to create as solely as a product, right? To be
Yeah.
sold as a genre, to
Yeah.
fit with it. Like, that's not the creative person's job. That's a marketing guy's
That's
job.
what Geico does.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
It's like that's and like I don't insult people who are in advertising who think of themselves as
No,
being creative.
thank you,
but,
Geico,
like,
for at
yeah,
least making your shit
but-
interesting.
Yeah,
totally.
but at the same time, it's like there's a trade-off when you introduce that like consideration of okay, this is for an audience and it's to sell Coca-Cola.
I guess
yeah.
that comes with analysis, like what you said, like analyzing things, certain experiences that help, like led you to look at things more closely for both, well, you. It, I think in analyzing it, that's part of the skill, that like being able to see how like genre is fluid. You said like going in between like music, different
Yeah.
kinds of music, that could be really different, but there's still some kind of commonality of it that you're zeroing in on.
Yeah, I think marijuana kind of made me realize a little bit that like creativity is just whatever medium your hands make, and it spills out of that. It's
Yeah.
all the same. It's like
There's no boundary to it.
Martin Scorsese directing is the same as Picasso painting. I know Picasso's canceled. Heard that recently.
He's canceled.
Yeah, but probably for good reason. I'm not, but I just think that's funny. Anyways, like it's just all like when I hear Roger Waters play the guitar during The Wall, like that is like how I feel like when I'm talking about politics. Like it's the same emotions. He just created that political feeling through his guitar, which is wild to think that humans, we communicate so well like this,
Yeah.
but that we can communicate in that. And humor is the same way. Music and humor and like just like that is so crazy to me that like that set of guitar notes is, you know, that political turmoil that he felt as a kid in England. Like that's so fucking weird.
But you know what's even weirder?
What?
That's all in you now.
Yes,
That's
that is
all.
weird.
Yeah, like
No.
and you know what's even weirder is like your experience of that is technically like you don't know that that's actually that
Yeah.
guy. Like what you're feeling, like it could be like I'm like in a really horrific sense, like kind of in a cosmic horror sense. It could be that you're alone in that feeling, right?
Yeah.
That you're that you're a crazy person. But,
Well,
like,
that-
right? But we know that that's not true though, because
Yeah.
when we come together as like when we hear live music together, we can see
Yeah.
right that
Well,
it's doing something that is it's tickling the same part of our brains, and maybe it doesn't always, you know, we have tastes and we have, you know, our experience informs what our taste in music is, but like
Yeah. That's what I got emotional the other night about the Beatles because I guess I'm going to keep explaining why I like the Beatles because we were talking about
Fuck yeah, dude.
Revelation, but like something, and this is true of all musicians, it's just the Beatles are my favorite, so that's what I'm going with, is that like the cool thing about the Beatles is they were one of the first mass produced, you know, music in the world, like really massive everywhere in the world, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing about that was they were some of the first people in the world who went into the studio and tinkered with shit constantly for a long time, and they hated each other. And those things sit on my mind. And it's wild, and they, like, that's the fucked up thing. It's like, they didn't have to do that at the time. That wasn't the norm. Like, Elvis just goes in the studio and he's like, burr, burr, doo, boo, boo, doo,
Yeah.
boo, doo, boo, doo, boo, doo, just does the same exact thing he would do in front of an audience. But the Beatles were like, all right, we can't sing it this way during a show, but we're gonna sing Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds like dee dee dee. But if you ever see them do it live, they're like Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, like, you know, the tempo, like, that's just the difference of live performance.
Yeah.
And the Beatles were like the first ones who were like, we're gonna put this effect in, we're gonna have an orchestra, we're gonna blah 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 blah, and they hated each other, and the fact that like the impact of those things that they were trying to communicate with me is still so powerful with me now.
Mm-hmm.
That means a lot to me. And when I realized that about all bands, like that was like it's just like it's a thing that I have now because they did that and they didn't have to do that. And like I thought that was cool, and I learned about that, and that I made that realization. And then I found out, this is what always fucks me up, specifically about the Beatles, is that Paul McCartney always said that, well, this is true about the Beatles, and any British invasion rock group really, is that they built their own guitars, right? Because they lived in horribly impoverished post-war England, right? So they all, Keith Richards, Paul McCartney, the Robert Plant, Robert Plant's British, right?
Sure.
They all made their own fucking guitars, right? And they grew up extremely poor, and all of them learned music from singing in the bunkers during World War II. That's where most people of that era would say that they remember their first memory of music, because it's
I think Ozzy talks about how
Ozzy, great example.
Yeah, and that's why there's that cavernous sort of echoey effect on his voice. It comes from
And
there's a few songs that they recorded early on that he doesn't sound like that. He has a beautiful voice. On the his voice is cool, but you don't normally think of it as being kind of. There's a song on their first album that he sounds completely different. He's just singing a different style, and it's more of just a classic blues style. It kind of reminds you of almost like when T-Pain like talked about how like he's like, I can sing really well. I don't need the auto-tune.
Oh yeah, he won the Master Singer, didn't he?
Yeah.
Well,
God, T-Pain.
So Paul McCartney always said that he always wanted to make music for people that would be in that same situation. And like then later at some point, this was last summer, there was like a horrible flood and a horrible storm, and we were all like, all the staff was put in this like giant dining hall, like in case the flash flood came through, and like everybody started singing Hey Jude. And I was like, oh shit, like he did that thing.
Yeah.
It's 60 years, 50, who knows, 50 years later since 1969, really. Mm-hmm. And it's still there.
It's
like
powerful.
that's what I like about music. Is like that's still there. People did that, and it was just in their brain. It lives there. I love that.
The thing I appreciate about the Beatles is just how much work they put out.
Yeah.
And they really highlighted, like you were saying, like the process of it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who strive just for singles, like get a hit single, but they just kept making new stuff and trying to grow and progress their music. And it's a huge inspiration for sure. And the fact that they all like hated each other, like you were saying, like it wasn't an easy thing. Like, yeah,
cocaine makes relationships really complicated.
Drugs in general will do that. Drugs, partying.
Yeah. But yeah,
sex.
that's and so many bands, became the Beatles, and then for years people hounded Paul McCartney and even Ringo, the guy who cannot write a song to save his life and keeps rehashing Beatles songs. They hounded him for years to make music because he still touches people, and that like he's still part of that. It's like there's something weird about it.
I was just kind of thinking about for a second. The Beatles, in kind of a way, like not necessarily any of them as an individual, but their music, like their catalog of songs, in a certain way, it actually fulfills a role and a void that earlier you were kind of talking about Obama, right?
Yeah.
Like as being like it just is more equipped for that, because it's art,
Yeah.
And if you were to have that feeling about any one of them as an individual, right? Like I mean, then it starts to get really dark, right?
Yeah.
That it's any one of these individuals and their individual psychology and their life, not their work, that's actually inspiring you. then you find yourself in that position of putting someone on a pedestal. But what I think art makes so meaningful and so apparent and so clear, especially art that we can digitize and catalog and experience over and over and over again, is that it helps our experience to reverberate, and to feel connected, and to actually meet that need that we want people that lead us and to inspire us. Like the art itself actually does it a lot better than the artist, or whoever it is.
That like goes back to what you were saying about being able to understand, like through marijuana, because I had that same experience. Like that's why I have the appreciation for music I do. Like getting high and listening to music, and just being able to appreciate all the pieces of it and not being tied to like one person in the band, because it's all their different energies, their different mentalities that like made the work so good, and just having an understanding for the overall process that each of them had to put into it, where it being this team of like conflict and collaboration and a balance between the two. And with the Beatles, you feel so much positive, but then you feel dark energy. Like
it's very it's I like ego-driven music is very interesting, and that's what a lot of people want, and that's very much become more and more.
Well, you have a relationship. You definitely have a relationship with ego-driven music.
Well,
even
Eminem.
Well, and in general, like, I mean, at their time, the Beatles were considered by society to have a big ego, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
for something they
like
said,
Elvis
right?
Presley.
Yeah,
is like
I mean,
a
so
saint now.
It's really just our cultural context that allows you to say, oh, well, it's like, I mean, there's always like. That's what's so interesting, is that because of the way that it's marketed to us, it's almost like a lot of times it is that ego-driven piece, and it's the yucky piece, it's the money-making piece that does hook you a little bit at the beginning. But that's just to like get it on your plate. I mean, like if it tastes like garbage, and it's not hitting you, right? Then it's no good. You send it back, like. But like most of the time, like what winds up happening is it's like, oh, I had this weird experience where like, someone was trying to like sell me this thing. But a lot of times, what's so great about now is you can get all the music, not really for free, but like through subscription services. Of course, there's problems with like what happens if they all go away, like then where's my music,
Right.
And what happens if an artist takes their stuff down, like all of a sudden, or changes all of their work? Like what happens if they have a break and they decide they want all their whole catalog to be white noise? So like,
Excuse me, I got something else.
And ego driven, right?
Ego-driven.
Yes. Like, so like basically, that idea of like, and I feel like, of course in high school, like I was into Kanye when we graduated. Yeezus came out, I think, and like I really liked that album at the time. But so much of it, like my appreciation for it probably had to do partially with just how much like I was just like, because at the time I just admired some of the audacity of like, especially seeing tour videos, just like the pyrotechnics and like the coordination of it. It was just like, this is wild. And like the costumes and the lighting, it was just weird, man. And I thought it was really, but like in reflection, I'm now like, because you see the other side of that. You see where he like kind of Kanye is now in terms of the space he occupies in our kind of popular imagination, and it's kind of like it almost reminds me of like, I remember reading this one book a long time ago, The Psychopath Test. So
cut.
Just name drop a random person
who also might be a psychopath in reference to a book called The Psychopath Test.
So what's the Psychopath Test about?
Well, basically, like just in it, I don't actually. What were they talking about right before that? Sorry, I lost.
Sorry.
No worries.
We're talking about music
And ego.
and ego-driven music, and like,
well, just like he identified this pattern, like in cult, like mostly looking at public people who experience mental illness in public. So were public figures at the time that they became mentally ill, and he kind of was reflecting on this time that he had been interested in this guy who was going around late night television. This was in the early 2000s, maybe the late 90s or something. And he claimed that he was like, basically he claimed that he knew 9/11 was going to happen. Like he was kind of like, he just seemed like an interesting kind of like figure. And he was in the media for like a week as like someone that you could like, maybe he's crazy, but maybe we should take him seriously. Right.
Yeah.
And then like 2 weeks later, it's getting crazier. Right. And he's starting to say like, oh, well, like the reason is because like, you know, Jesus, I'm his little brother, or like it was just like basically. And I'm paraphrasing the story. I'm probably getting small details wrong because it's been years since I read the book. But basically, what he kind of identifies is this like kind of interaction in our culture between like someone who like they're on the edge, right, and we're just like, oh, they're on the edge, and then they see us and they're like, you good? And we're like, yeah. And then they're like, okay, and they just like go, and we're like, yeah. It's just like. And then, like, we almost, like, kind of self-perpetuate, like, their becoming insane because at first it intrigued us, right? Or becoming something that we marginalize, right? Because at first it was amusing, right? And I feel like a lot of, like, not to like, say that Kanye is a victim or anything, but definitely I feel like what he represented in 2014 doesn't hold as much cred in 2020, you know, just because of all the weird and like, you know, again, like I don't even know half the reason why, but like that's the thing is like public figures, like we analyze so much of like what's going on in our current moment. If we want to look at that, you can always ignore that, right? And just kind of, but at the same time, it's like. And that's a weird thing. It's like, how do you know what's actually the current moment, right? Is it, do you turn off all the TVs and you just focus on what's happening in your house, right?
Right now.
And every time a window creaks, you're just like, oh, I gotta seal up that window. Like, yeah, like you can do that. You can, okay, now, like, okay, this house is freaking me out. I gotta get out of the house, right? So, like, sell the house, get in the car, start road tripping, right? And then, like, you're just... But then you're a different kind of crazy, right? Then you're homeless, right?
Yeah.
Then you're like, that's the thing, is like, you're either crazy because you're like letting the news and current events that don't actually influence your immediate circumstances affect you, or you're crazy because you don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And someone's like, what, you don't know what's going on?
It just like pick your crazy what you want.
Yeah. We're again, it's that line. It's that drunk man's stumble, you know, through life, through this crazy little algorithm that we're all on.
Till you just wake up in a sewer face down.
One time I woke up in college, I remember I just like I had woken up in a trench outside it because we were in a basement room. And I woke up in a trench in the middle of a rainstorm.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a transformational moment.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like I'm like I learned something from that.
Don't want to wake up here again.
I just woke up in the middle of my backyard.
Nice.
I've woken up in the middle of your backyard.
I know, I just said that.
Oh, I did?
Yes.
Yeah. I've woken up in a lot of places.
A lot of backyards.
Yeah, I've woken up in some fields for sure.
Backyards, fields, 7-Elevens.
You know what's really crazy? Like that's just how young people die.
Yeah.
I mean, like there's all these like
Caves. It's caves.
Well,
Caves are taken up.
Well, no, it's like there's a lot of like unsolved murders out there that people have like conspiracy theories about, like what happened to these people, and that there must have been a murderer, but it's like they kind of just disappeared and there's not many details, and it's usually like they were drunk and they wandered off, like because there's a nearby area that is complete wilderness,
Here goes another
and they just no one knew where they were going, and the reason that the police keep the case open is because they can't definitively prove that technically, or that but like it's like it's one of these things where it's just like. And they just can't devote resources to recovering, like, someone who wandered off. It's like, horrible.
If you look at an overlay, I've seen this somewhere on the internet. You overlay a map of where all the caves of the known caves of the United States are.
Wait, you're being serious about this cave stuff?
Yeah, and then you overlay all the missing persons reports and general locations of last seen. It's like right on the money. It's like. People are caves, swamps, deep woods, cliffy areas.
Swamps.
Yeah, swamps. Yeah, gators, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gators are wild.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time watching gator attack videos.
Water too. Anywhere there's
No
water.
chance.
Swimming, like honestly, just well, not swimming pools, but like yeah, just like oceans,
Ponds,
right?
yeah.
Like you can
The
get
Finger
you can get
Lakes.
dragged out. You can get dragged out in a rip current. Like if you try to go swimming at night, and just like where did this person go?
Dude, yeah,
they just
water's-
woke up in the middle of the night. They started drinking, right? And then they were like, "Oh, I love the ocean," right?
Yeah.
And it's just like, "Oh, well, I don't want to wake anyone up." All right. Gone. No one knows what happened.
Water is just like, you realize how much power your like Mother Nature has. Like it's not up to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been talking for 3 hours now.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I need to piss like a racing
Yeah,
horse.
Yeah.
I hope that was your intention, right? You just wanted to get us to the point where we had to pee really bad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm glad
That's
we
what
got
this is
there.
for.
We can all
Yeah.
pee together now.
Okay.
Sword fight.
We should totally do that before I peed my pants.
Shit.
Perfect.
Yeah. Oh. Ooh.
Damn. We gotta cut this soon.
You've been eating asparagus.
Yeah. Well, actually, a little bit.
That shit kicks in quick.
I can't smell anything.
I didn't actually pee my pants.
No, of course not. I think it was no, I didn't do anything.
What?
You didn't do anything.
Yeah, it's all good.
I didn't do anything. I don't know what you're talking
I
about.
didn't do nothing.
I did something.
Chester Cheeto. Well, yeah, let's
love
call it,
your
guys.
favorite-
I'm done.
This,
I need
this
to
was a
pee
lot of fun.
so fucking bad.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for being here, yeah.
Yeah, and thanks for allowing us to do a costume change.
It wouldn't have been the same without it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And thank you for allowing us to share our thoughts on.
Thanks for
on
eating
some
my
shit.
ass.
Anytime, man. You got my number.
Yeah, I'll be by.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is there any way you close this out? Is
No.
there any way- Oh, okay.
not really.
You just
Usually
like-
just like there'll be something random and we just cut it at that point.
Bye, guys. If you want to just cut to like this.
Yeah.
I'm coming out of my cage and I've been doing just fine. Gonna be down because I want it all. It started out with a kiss, how did it end up like this? It was only a kiss, it was only a kiss. Now she's having a smoke and she's taking a drag and she's having a fag. Oh wow! And that's a wrap.
Yes.
It's a fake British accent. I can say that. Pause. The boys.
The boys. For the boys.
All right.